In this video, we address an issue with a GE refrigerator, model GSS25SGRB. I noticed that the items in the freezer were starting to thaw at the top and remain frozen at the bottom of the freezer. I also saw a massive ice formation in the back metal panel of the freezer. And I also noticed a rise in temperature in the refrigerator itself. So we determined the issue to be a high limit thermostat, and we replaced the defrost heater kit. Alright, so we have this GE side-by-side refrigerator. We're using it in our garage. And basically the freezer has not been working so well up on top, but it's been working okay down in the bottom. This is a model, let's see, GSS25SGRB SS. And we bought this about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago tops. It's done okay. Hasn't been like the best refrigerator we've ever had, but we bought it used. But essentially I've done a little bit of digging into this, and it looks to me like what our issue is the defrost system is not working properly, so it's completely frozen up. And so essentially the finish, the paint finish in here is terrible. There's like so much rust and paint flaking off. It's just, again, don't buy a GE in my opinion. They're terrible. Of course, most things built these days kind of sucks. Most modern equipment. So we bought this kit that essentially is going to replace the heater, and it's also got the thermostat control as well. So I'll show you what it looks like here in a minute. I'll take everything out, unplug it, and hopefully get some good lighting and be able to show you what it looks like when we remove this panel. Okay, I'm starting out by removing these 2/4 inch screws up here. The refrigerator is unplugged at this point, just to be clear on this. Definitely don't want to work on appliances when they're plugged in unless you're trying to troubleshoot and you're being very careful and cautious with a live circuit. Not knowing really, if this has ever been serviced before, if there's any bare leads behind here, I'm just playing it safe. There's no point in having it run right now. Most of these components I can test without having it run. It's just a ground strap here. Oh, all right. Alright, so what you can see here is we have a completely frozen over condenser, and actually this might be called the evaporator, I don't recall. Anyways, so we're going to have to completely defrost this, and this is the little heating element right here, and sure enough, this up here, let me get this off from this right here is the little jobby that goes bad all the time. And what they tell you is if it's expanded like this and kind of, popped out on top like that, the little rubber cap, or it might be epoxy, if that pops off, it's a telltale sign that it's bad. So as you can see, ours is definitely bad. So I'm going to defrost all this. I'll put it in time lapse and you can kind of see. We'll defrost all this and make a huge mess. All right, more to come. All right, so we're discovering all kinds of issues in this refrigerator. First of all, this little defrost trough right here is basically just sitting here and not draining properly. So I'm going to run some string trimmer line down this tubing and see if I can get it unplugged. Another thing is that little goop there that's supposed to seal, obviously at some point in time in its life somehow moved up. I don't know how it moved up that much, but apparently it did at some point. So we're going to replace this defrost heater momentarily, and we're also going to replace this defunct thermostat here that basically switches on and off the defrost heater. As you can tell, it's popped. It's definitely no longer any good. The new one is flush at the top, and this one obviously has the epoxy that's just kind of pushed out, which is a telltale sign of failure with this guy. So what I did was I removed the ice maker at the top, and it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to remove all this stuff up above. It's a matter of about six to eight screws. I'm sure if you're going to work on a refrigerator, you can certainly figure out how to remove this. So I won't go into depth about how to remove this, but essentially I flip this around, and this is where all the wiring resides. And the little thermal switch is at the top there, and there's another little white thermistor there that I'm also going to replace. I've got both of those in the little kit that we bought. Yeah, I'm just going to rewire this, and I will heat shrink it and make sure it's all as good as new. So we'll come back at you here in a minute. This little guy here basically just pulled right apart. So essentially these solder connections inside have basically just completely either corroded to the point where they broke, or got so hot that they broke. But essentially whenever you see this kind of popping up like that, it's a telltale sign that it's defective. Again, in removing everything that I needed to get greater access to the wiring, I'm going to have to cut this wire here. It's basically a daisy chain off from the light socket. It's probably, I would assume, a hot 120 volts AC. Goes through this guy, thermal cutoff, gets this is a factory connection here. I believe that's just basically a crimped connection behind heat shrink. And then it goes to a thicker gauge wire that then goes down to the thermal unit, which I've pulled out and getting ready to replace it. See if I can tuck some stuff out of the way so I can go over this a little bit better. Basically, if you look in here, this guy, it's essentially really hazy in there. Looks like it's been in submerged in quite a bit of liquid. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace it. And ordered this kit on Amazon, and it's from what I can tell, it's just a generic kit for GE refrigerators with this issue. And it comes with everything we need pretty much. Here's the string trim method that I use to clear this the blockage in this little drain hole that was plugged up. Basically, I just kind of pushed this string tube down, until I got it to completely remove the blockage. And come to find out, where I thought this goop was supposed to be down here, it's actually got more or less two airtight fittings, or they're supposed to be airtight, but who knows how airtight they are. But essentially there's a grommet here, and then there's a tube here that's kind of like insulated, and then there is a little bit of goop that goes around the top of this. So that is actually the way it's supposed to look. So I was wrong earlier in thinking that this goop should be down here. So I just want to clarify that. So basically I'm going to pull this guy out. I'm going to cut this, I'm going to cut this lead here on this guy, and then I'm going to take this pink wire out completely, and I'm going to go to my bench, my electronics bench, resolder this and heat shrink it, and then I'm either going to use a crimp to connect the other end of the thermal switch or thermal cutoff. I'm going to either use it here or solder here with a piece of heat shrink. And the kit also came with this little thermal thermistor, and I'm not going to replace that. I don't believe that the one that's in there now is any trouble at all. We don't have any issues with it regulating temperature aside from freezing up. So essentially what we're just going to go after is this guy and the new thermal the new defrost heater. And once I get it back in, I will come back to you and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to work on swapping out the thermal units. Just make sure everything looks kosher. So just gotta get the right orientation here. Okay, so this is gonna be the pink side. Doesn't really matter, it's not polarity sensitive, it's just a heating element, but I just want to try to get it. So that I can put it back together the way it's supposed to be in the proper orientation. And don't try this at home, folks. This guy is not wanting to come out of here. There. Okay. So that guy's been a little warm, but the end looks okay. It doesn't look corroded. Okay. Alright, so now, without further ado, get these guys screwed on there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it with the camera or not. Kind of having to, there's a puddle on the floor right by the camera, and kind of having to lean over the camera to do this, so we'll see how it turns out. Let's see, I'm going to take the shelf off for sure. Pardon my reach. Okay. This cord out of the way. Okay. I don't think he saw any of that. Let's see if I can improve things a little bit. Okay. Let's see. least started in one side. And I can play around with the alignment on the other. It's like the cheapest stamped steel there is. Pretty thin gauge, so pretty easy to, you know, booger up in shipping and on the way here and taking it out of the box. So slight realignment might be required if it doesn't line up. Not too impressed with GE appliances. This is just kind of a local shopper kind of looking for a garage fridge. The lady listed it as a Whirlpool, and not that Whirlpool is the best or any other brand is the best, but I would regard Whirlpool a little higher with refrigerators than I would General Electric. So anyways, see if I can get this guy. Really just crappy, very cheap. Get it to last long enough to go past the warranty phase, and then who cares what happens after that. Okay, so I've got to wrap this pink wire up through here. Going to show you what I'm doing here. Wrap this here, tuck this in here. You don't want to obviously get your wire into these sharp, prickly little radiant heat or radiant coil radiators. It's a pretty thick jacketed wire, but you don't really want to play with fate. Okay, so that's kind of tucked out of the way back there, and I'm just going to continue routing it up into this area right up here. Keep it out of harm's way. And this guy over here pretty much does the same thing. And I'm just kind of pulling this guy up higher. Keep him out of the way a little bit. Okay. So now, without further ado, let's see here. This guy. This guy's going to hang out over here. This guy I'm going to wire tie up a little bit better. This guy, I believe, was up in here. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to need both of my hands, so I'm going to, lighting is probably going to suck, but let's see. Let me see if I can bring you guys up here. A little better perspective here. And you kind of see what I'm up to. Okay. So now, take this guy, like so. Actually going to flip it around. You won't be able to see too easily what I'm seeing. So I bring it down like this, which I guess I can. I'm in your way. way. Essentially this guy has to okay, so this guy was clipped on down here. Okay. This little rascal. Okay. Okay. Basically, all right, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like with it all buttoned up. We've got the ground connected right there. We've got all the three connectors right there connected. 2 screws are in the top brackets there. And we've got our thermistor back where it needs to be. Let's see, this white thermistor right here is back where it needs to be. The new, I don't know if it's thermal cutoff, what it is, but essentially it's it allows AC to go to the heating element. I'm sure that it probably switches off. It's basically more than likely a thermal switch. I believe that's the definition of it, but essentially that's wired. The wiring is all zip tied like it was from the factory, away from any moving parts, with a fan. Everything is heat shrunk like factory and sealed. And then we've got our line coming down here going into the new defrost heater. And of course the other side was the blue side, and that's the way it was from the factory. So everything is back to normal. Just gonna, you know, of course, make sure you don't get any of the screws when you're re-securing the panels onto the wiring. Make sure all the wiring is out of the way. You've got your ground clip that clips on here on the metal cover that goes on here, and aside from that, we should be good to go. I'm going to clean it up a little bit more, and then I'm going to throw the cover on, and we're going to test it. Alright, we've got it all put back together. I've got the upper cover on. Again, I'm just removing and keeping the ice maker completely removed. Because it's our garage fridge, we would rather have the storage in the freezer than have you know, an ice maker that's just sitting there not doing anything. So I've got it all cleaned up. We'll come back to it in a couple of hours, make sure, you know, things are looking good in here.